relationships.
Okay, everybody. Welcome back.
We're back.
It's relationships. All three of us are back.
Yeah.
Me, Paul.
And Viviana.
And Bryce.
Yep. And, yeah.
It's been a few weeks.
It's been a few, but
I'd say like 2 at the most.
It might be a little bit more than that.
Seems like it was just yesterday, so it probably was.
Like a month and a half? Was that?
It's been a month and a half, at least.
But, that's really not bad considering
What a month and a half it's been.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, it's not bad considering what?
It's not bad considering that we've had some really long breaks at times.
That's true.
So, I'd say we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
And we have some potentially awesome things in the works.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Realistic expectations. Good. I said potentially awesome.
Yes, that's right. Got it.
Yeah. So today's topic is about John Gottman and his research on healthy and unhealthy marriages. But first, we need news updates.
Yeah, so RGB died. So I spent the morning just looking up stuff about that and reading news articles about it.
Wait, RGB or RBG?
RBG. That's what I meant.
This is funny.
I think RGB is like the color pattern.
Yes, which I was looking up last night.
Scientist in me.
For my phone.
That's my Freudian.
and that's how I learned about Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
So,
anyway,
my Freudian
one of the Supreme Court justices, very prominent.
Yeah.
Passed away.
My brother treats everybody in the world like they're a member of our church, and so he was calling her Sister Ginsburg as we were texting today about it. But yeah, she's passed away. So, yeah. Anyway, that's the lawyer in me.
Yeah.
I was interested in that.
Brilliant and inspiring woman. And I think she kind of, I had this written down in my notes. I was going to mention it if you guys didn't, but she kind of embodied some of the things we're talking about here. Like her relationship with Justice Scalia. Ideologically, they were opposites. They didn't agree on much, but they were very good friends. Right? And I just read this anecdote on Facebook that someone shared that like, some guy, I'm slaughtering the anecdote, but essentially was talking to Scalia, and Scalia had these roses that he was going to give to her for her birthday. And this guy was like, what? Well, but you guys disagree on everything, and have these roses convinced her of anything? And he said, no, but some things are more important than votes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were good friends who disagreed on a lot of things, but they were good friends.
And Scalia had a good sense of humor, so perhaps it helped. There was a study that somebody did on who got the most laughs on the Supreme Court. Because when there's laughter in the Supreme Court hearings, the recorder records laughter in brackets.
Yeah.
And so they just looked, and it was Scalia like by far. He just got the most laughter after his comments.
Yeah.
He was a funny guy.
Anyway, but he passed away a while ago, so we're talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
He did. So
for a few more seconds. Anything else?
Anyways, no, that's about it.
Okay.
I was just like,
what else in your life?
I don't know. It smelled smoke. There's been some fires happening. There's some fires here in the Uintas. So this morning I smelled smoke. Our COVID numbers have been going up here in Utah.
Okay, so ever since coming out as Latter-day Saints, I think we can also say, we live in Salt Lake City. We've never officially said that. we may have let it slip a few times.
Yeah.
We did let it slip, and then I pretended like we were talking about Salt Lake in India, because there's a Salt Lake in India, apparently. Something like that.
I'm sure you fooled whoever picked up on it.
I'm surprised we didn't convince people. I mean, with my accent... People do think I have an accent, though. The one time we had the one show, and one of your friends, Bryce, said, with Bryce, with your laughter and Paul's accent, this show's gold. And I was like, what accent do I have?
Is he a California dude?
Sometimes. People do sometimes ask
Californians.
me. Yeah,
excuse me. The Californians.
Yeah, and people sometimes ask me if I'm from California, or they'll ask me if I smoke weed. And I say, no, I don't smoke weed. It's just because I kind of have a laid-back personality. Or they'll sometimes ask, man, where's your accent from? And I'll say, Phoenix. I don't think there's a Phoenix accent.
That's funny.
But anyways.
Anyway, we're in Salt Lake.
Yeah, so speaking of the fires, I went with a good friend of mine, down to the Pleasant Grove fire that happened, I think it was last Saturday. At literally midnight, we went to go see how close we could get to the fire.
Wait, you did it at midnight? Oh, go on.
It legit smelled so bad.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Is that like in a neighborhood?
In Battle Creek.
It's in the wilderness part there of Pleasant Grove kind of thing?
Yeah. Do you know where Battle Creek is? It's a hike, but it's also,
Did a battle happen there?
Who is this guy?
There was a battle that happened there. It was actually the first battle in the state of Utah between
Was it a Civil War battle?
the Mormons and the
Native Americans.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
There were 3 casualties, so you could research that on your own if you're interested.
When we edit this episode, we'll put
This
taps in.
podcast covers everything.
Yes, it does. How big is the fire? It's like...
I think 100 acres burnt down. So
Who is this friend of yours?
Pretty intense.
it's a girlfriend of mine.
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah.
Because I just want to say...
I just didn't know if I should say other people's names.
Probably
because,
not.
That's,
unless you run it by them.
You say a friend who we will call, and then
Give their first name followed by the last initial. And then say, no, that's too obvious. And then give the first initial followed by the last name.
There you go.
I stole that from Simpsons.
Good job.
Let's call him Bart S. No, that's too obvious. Let's call him B. Simpson.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go.
Okay, I was just going to say that I'm jealous that you have the kind of social life where you can do fun things spur the moment in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
Because I don't have that here.
So my friend was dropping me off, and because we had just hung out with a whole bunch of other people, and by other people, whole bunch of other people, I mean 2 other people. But yeah, we definitely like to go out and do things and have fun, and we live it up. Life is YOLO.
It certainly is.
Oh man, we got to insert like a hip hop song right here.
No. And I swore that we would try to keep this to only 45 minutes, and that we'd have to limit our tangents, and we're already failing. But and I'm one of the worst offenders. Okay, so that's what's going on in Paul's news. For me. Oh, yeah?
Yeah, no, you go.
Yeah, okay. It's important the world knows these things. Very important. I saw Tenet with Paul and another friend.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was so loud and confusing, but it was the coolest movie I've seen that I didn't understand, probably.
Bryce kept coming into my room and for days after and walking backwards and being like, I'm inverted. It was kind of fun.
Anyway, you're welcome, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, that's right. When are you going to start advertising?
Yeah, exactly. I went hiking on Wednesday and almost got stranded on the mountain in the dark along this treacherous ravine.
Was that your first
water
time
running through it?
being stranded?
Well, I wasn't, but I almost was. I've had a few close calls, actually, where it's like, boy, I really should have turned around. I mean, I go with this group, so it's not completely unsafe. I mean, I was with 2 other people this time, but this time for sure, it's like, why did I not start my return sooner? We didn't have enough daylight to...
You didn't have lights? You had one guy with a light in your group, right?
That I was with, yeah. And I mean, I used my phone too. Anyway, it was fine. I dropped my phone, the phone I love so much, and it's horribly cracked now, and I got a replacement that arrived yesterday, and it sucks. I hate it.
Yeah.
It's technically the same model, but it's not the same phone. It doesn't have the same features. It has half the RAM. Anyway, important that the world know about this. Lastly, I just want to say, I've been doing the most dating this summer than I've ever done in my life, which is ironic, but I've also been trying harder. And a lot of that dating is talking to girls who live in Latin America, which is not the ideal form of dating, but suffice to say, there's a lot of wonderful women all over the world. Hope to find one closer.
Yeah, sure. Is this all mutual stuff?
Yeah, using Mutual, the premier LDS dating app.
I think they should pay you for advertising.
We should we should reach out to them.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, see if we can collaborate. I just want to say, there's been a lot of changes. Not to get into details, there's been a lot of family drama in my family, changes in family structure, and all of this, my own dating experiences and family stuff makes this topic seem very pertinent to me. So anyway, that's my news flash. Viviana?
Oh, so my news flash is what I said earlier, which is I went to the Battle Creek fire, and I saw 100 acres burn down, and it was crazy to see the fire just continue to just consume, as much of the side of the mountain as it could within that short amount of span. But also, so I started a new job.
Nice.
I'm really excited about this because I am working as a behavior technician, which is basically working with kids who have autism, and sometimes some of the clients that we have ADHD, and we're trying to help those kids, basically improve certain maladaptive behaviors, but also learn new skills that are in their best long-term interest. And so it's really exciting.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
And you start by giving them a John Gottman book and saying,
no.
"Here, you need a healthy marriage, kid."
No, it's a different branch of psychology, because behavior sciences it's like if you were to take an apple and you were to slice it one way, that's like behavior analysis. But then Freud's idea would be like a completely different way to chop the apple. But then I do think that John Gottman, he does a little bit of applied, because it seems like what he does in his love labs is he had people it's very fascinating. He had people that he would bring.
Keep going.
He had people that he would bring into his labs, couples, and he would literally, he would take their pulse the entire time that they were in their seats talking with their couples.
Let's interrupt. I'm going to interrupt really quick. John Gottman, obviously the subject of our talk today. He's a well-respected researcher on marriage relationships. He's been doing this for like 3 decades, I think. Very well-respected. Very statistically strong results, which is rare in the social sciences. Anyway, go on.
And so what he would do is, when he would bring his couples into his love lab, is he would take their pulse throughout the entire time that they were in his love lab. He would take their blood samples, I think, before and after, and he would also take urine samples. Yeah. And the reason for the urine samples to pick up on the stress, the cortisol levels, absolutely. And so it's just really interesting. But and they would actually also practice some of this applied behavior analysis, I guess you would call it, which is kind of, where you're taking data on how many times does this person smile when their partner is talking, So that was really interesting. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's just a different branch of psychology, applied behavior analysis. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
This is why Bryce has started taking blood samples on dates. And, he's
asking them stressful questions.
He's like, look, I'm just not going to take the urine sample, but all the other stuff I'm going to do. That's good.
Wait, are you calling him a vampire?
Yeah. Anyway.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I know. Bryce just handed me a goat head, one of these thorns, because we kept finding these in our carpet, and we all assumed it's our one roommate who goes on a lot of bike rides, and then one day I came home from a walk, and I just casually looked at the bottom of my shoes, and I had 12 of these in the bottom of my shoes. I think maybe I'm the guy who's.
And I found another one when Viviana came in. So
yeah, I found a couple in my room lately.
So,
I forget to check my shoes sometimes.
Speaking of relational conflict, but this is a problem. But I think it's part of the 31% of solvable problems.
Yeah, it is
unless
solvable.
You have some dreams behind these goat heads.
It's true, but if you're going to bring up the goat head now, you got to follow it by 5 positive comments.
That's
so
true.
You have the right positive to negative ratio.
Smart, kind, funny. You have beautiful blue eyes, if I can say that.
They're hazel, you fool.
And you're very good at walking. What'd you say?
You're like that beer commercial, because my eyes are hazel.
Oh, whatever beautiful color they are.
Let's just talk about the comment, "You're very good at walking." I think that is the most hilarious positive comment you could possibly give anyone.
He is very good at walking.
I do go on long walks, but it's true. It's not.
I was grasping.
It's not the kind of thing you consider a compliment. Thanks.
Well, it wasn't negative.
I'll tell you what, man. I've been walking since I was 2 or something.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, we're 14 minutes in, and again, I can not point the finger at anyone but myself, first and foremost. Okay, one thing I thought was interesting in this video, which, by the way, we'll include a link to the video in the description of this episode. But one of the things I thought was interesting is that he says that it's not a war against negativity. Actually, let's hold off on that. Let's talk about some of the context. First and foremost, I just want to say, when I listen to this kind of stuff, it makes me think like, boy, a lot of this is not so. It's kind of common sense, kind of.
It seems common sense, but just because it is common sense doesn't mean that you practice it. Like just because you know something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you practice that.
Precisely.
And it also doesn't mean that you've mastered that.
Precisely.
It doesn't come naturally.
Execution.
To
It doesn't.
It's not cuts against the natural man. Like,
exactly. You know, it's the execution that's a constant challenge. You know, and you know, to get churchy for a second, like this is why God wants us to be married. It's why in the Latter-day Saint religion we believe God is actually an exalted woman and an exalted man together. That you can't get to his level unless you're actually a pair. It's nothing will refine us more, I think. Well, except maybe kids. I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway, it's
family
part
in
of the
general,
refining process.
In general, family.
An essential part. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Sure, like where rough stones rolling. I've talked about this. Yeah. I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but that where all rough stones rolling, the world is like a bunch of rocks put in a tumbler, and a family is like a bunch of rocks put in a blender. There's more refinement that happens, and close proximity with people. You have some of this. You get this to some extent with the roommates, but not to the same degree.
And I'm feeling that in my family right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
For me. Anyway.
But this first thing about like I thought about this. So one of the first things that he talks about is this positive to negative ratio in your comments, I guess, and yeah, I mean, just that by itself, I think is hard. It doesn't come natural to me. You know, like I think about like roommate situations, for example, when I
hold on, let's back up.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is this one positive?
It's just the idea that marriages. So his research found that marriages that last have a 5-to-1 positive to negative ratio in their comments to one another.
Yeah.
So, right? Was that how you would say
that?
that?
And I think it was also the healthier marriages or the happier marriages. Or do you think?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
Because
Okay.
it seemed like the main outcome they were looking at was divorce in what time frame. I don't know if they looked at.
I thought he had a comment in there. Though,
they might have.
I thought he had a comment though in there somewhere that like the happiest marriages had even higher positive rate, and then he had said something like 20-1 or something.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
So maybe they did touch on that, but it seemed like the primary thing they were looking at is what predicts divorce versus non-divorce.
Yeah, but
anyway, I interrupted you.
No, you're fine.
For some context.
Sure. Yeah. Here's a real world Paul example. Is I was noticing like some. So it's easy for me to notice, like, this person never does dishes. Or
I don't know who that could possibly be in this house.
They take a long time doing the dishes, but it's kind of like it is true. Like my initial reaction is to be like, maybe I should say something about this, but it requires more introspection and work. To be like, well, how many positive comments am I making towards that person? Because if I'm not, this isn't gonna help for me to make this comment.
Right.
Well, it's kind of like that whole idea of rapport. Like if you don't have rapport with someone, then what you say probably isn't gonna matter.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't care, you know.
Yes.
It's like the one roommate I had that was always trying to sell me something.
You never cared.
And every time the conversation started, I was like, here it comes again. Another sales pitch. I'm like, I'm just waiting for it.
And he thinks he's giving you negative comments because it's like, I'm just trying to, quote unquote, help Paul.
Or positive. I mean, he thinks he's giving me, maybe.
Positive, yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know what I said.
But the Gottman stuff also said that there's a 0.8-to-1 positive to negative ratio in marriages that end in divorce, right? I guess
Interesting.
There's more things happening that are negative than they are positive.
So I think this just goes to show, or it's another evidence of just how, like, the human mind, I mean, maybe you could say the human brain, maybe the human spirit, I don't know, but something in us is so much more sensitive to negativity than to positivity, right?
Yeah.
And how, like, we need, as such, I mean, it's part of the human nature, and as such, like, we need to work hard to be more positive and to appreciate the positive. You know, that's why, you know, they found that on, like, research on gratitude, for instance, it helps you be happier. And you know, and we all have room for improvement for that because, again, it's human nature.
You have to, like, proactively think about it and look for it and be like, oh, I do like this about this person, though. You know, and then point it out so that they know it.
You know, it's a funny thing because I'm listening to a book an audiobook called Good Morning, I Love You. And in it, the lady is talking about how gratitude, how we tend to focus so much on everything that is negative in our life. And it's kind of just like the default. And in fact, it's not necessarily a bad thing because that is how our ancestors, you know, the ones who actually focused on the negativity, the lion chasing them, or all the threats, they're the ones that survived, right?
Yep.
But I honestly think that, so what she's saying is, she says, yeah, we do need to focus on all the good things that are going right in our life. She's just saying that in general, and that if we do that, we actually will be happier. But I think also in Gottman's research, he says the exact same thing. He says that for whatever reason, there's these masters and disasters of relationships that he's studied over his last 3 decades. And the masters, they actually build a culture of appreciation.
Oh, well, you're
I'm jumping ahead. But to go back to this kind of concept of like, hey, there's a reason why, you know, some people do end up getting divorced. And I don't know, I think it's sad. I actually really liked what he said about people that get divorced. He says that he thinks it's a tragedy when couples get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I definitely think that some things can be prevented. You know, maybe not everything can be prevented, but, you know, it is a tragedy when people fall out of love. I definitely believe that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Couldn't agree more. So, so he kind of talks about these two main topics. I don't know. Yeah, topics. We'll go with that word. I mean, he starts off talking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is basically what the research found about predictors of marital breakup.
And the apocalypse.
And it has to do with conflict, how they handle conflict. What
and
were you going to say?
They're the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
What did I say?
No, because you know, I think in John the Revelator, the book of
Revelations,
he talks about how there's certain things that signal the end of the times, you know, right? Yeah. And so, but this is what he's saying, you know, him being Jewish, there's 4 things that signal the end of your relationship. And if you have these 4 things in your relationship, it seems common sense, but again, we might know this and we might intellectually understand it and we might be like, yes, this makes sense. But the idea is, well, do we actually practice these things? Yeah. And are we actually mastering these things? You know, like that's really what's most important.
And, you know, honestly, this is one of the limitations of our podcast, right? We want to help people escape singleness and have better relationships. And we want that for ourselves too. All we can do is give you information, right? And stimulate your brain to consider some of these things. But if you really want to make changes, talk with friends, talk with family, work with a coach, work with a therapist, set goals and pursue them. This is Bryce, the coach, talking, obviously. But like, just understand, people, that we love that you're listening to us. But if any of this resonates with you, please do something about it.
Yeah, you can start by listening to that Michael Jackson song about the man in the mirror.
That's true. That's true. Instead of complaining about all the bad dates or lack of dates, you need to look in the mirror, and I mean that. We all need to do that.
But you know, this when you're talking about this 4 horsemen kind of thing, it was making me think about how some of this stuff really is really hard. I think too, it's like where does our mind go when somebody does something that annoys us? And because it is true. He talks about the difference between like he makes a soccer ball analogy. You know, this is a good this first horseman of the apocalypse is like criticism or how you complain about different things. You know, like when he talks about the soccer ball is like good couples that last. They kick the soccer ball around back and forth, but
the soccer ball represents a problem.
Represents the problem.
Yeah.
And a disaster is like taking that problem and like it's like, no, this is, you are the problem.
That's right.
You are the problem.
He said putting the soccer ball inside of them, which is a strange way to think about it, but right, essentially saying, this is unsolvable because you are fundamentally the problem. It's your defect.
And some of that starts just in your mind, the way you're thinking about stuff. Because like even when I was thinking about the dishes, you know, and if I'm like 3 days in a row, this guy is never going to change. And,
He's evil.
Yeah, exactly. He's just sloppy or something. And, which is a bad way to look at it. But I mean, that's where the natural man mind goes.
Yeah, to the negativity, because that's just like the default.
Yeah. Now, interesting, and I mentioned this earlier, but interestingly, their conclusion was that, to help marriages, we don't need to declare a war against negativity. The goal is not actually to try to remove that.
Sure.
Because it's actually inevitable, and negative experiences and like bringing those to the forefront in conflict.
Yeah.
That's a necessary condition to actually becoming closer. Yeah. If not finding resolution. It's unhealthy, and this is, to overshare a little bit, this is an issue in my family. We're totally conflict avoid. Well, we don't handle conflict very well. We're not unique in that. Like tons and tons of people do that. But I think it's also, I worry that the culture in the church promotes some of this behavior too, where people
don't have conflict
because they think they have to be nice all the time, and just whatever hurts they feel, they just have to push them down and pretend they're not there. The denial, and
but that's actually hurting the person.
Some of that is useful, but I think most of us where that's an issue, we take it too far, including myself, and I've been trying to course correct.
And I think what's really important here is that so he says that that's what the disasters do. What the disasters do is they criticize. They say, "Hey, man, you're the problem." If they stick that soccer ball inside their partners, right? But the masters, he says what they do is they still complain, but they complain in a very different way.
Yeah.
And what they do is they talk about themselves. And instead of saying, they still talk about the problem. They're still complaining about the problem, but they also talk about about how they, approach the problem. And so, for example, if a person says, "You never talked about yourself all throughout dinner. You never asked me anything about my day," they're talking about themselves, and then they also talk about the way that they feel. That hurt my feelings, and then they also talk about what they need. I need you to, ask me about my day, whereas the disasters would be like, "You talked about yourself all throughout dinner. You never asked me about my day. What is wrong with you?"
Wrong with you?
Well, I guess I'm an
there's
evil person.
One of those is constructive, one of those is not. And I think, again, speaking personally, the whole idea of like expressing your own needs, something I've never learned to do, until recent years. And right, this is an important aspect of resolving conflict, is to express your needs in a way that doesn't vilify the other person. What's so
I was
funny?
just laughing at the part of the video where Gottman, he was saying, he was expressing to his wife, but she wasn't as affectionate as often as he was. And he made some comment like, "Boy, I really loved it when you were affectionate the other day. Man, how can we do some more of that?" or something. She said, "How?" Or he said, "When?" or something. She said, "How about right now?" It's just like...
I don't remember that, but I bet he liked that.
Yeah, exactly. But sorry, were you wrapping up that thought?
I don't... Yeah, maybe. I mean, I have other questions, or other thoughts on this, of course. Like, again, I wonder if the church culture of quote-unquote kindness, well, it's a good culture. I would rather it be kindness than culture of unkindness. But I think it's easy for us to jump to the wrong conclusions as it relates to our own emotional well-being. And to be fair, and I'm not criticizing the church at all. The church is wonderful, and to their credit, like, this is something I think they're putting more effort towards. Like, the church has this pilot program about building emotional resilience. I'm participating in it. The material's very good, and it's not, I mean, it's a healthy combination of, scriptures and church leaders and doctrine with practical psychological research, I would say. I think it's tempting for us, and this is me speaking as someone who's a Latter-day Saint and a psychologist, lowercase p psychologist, and a coach. Like, not everything can be neatly explained away, and what's the word?
Like packaged?
But by a good scripture or doctrinal statement, right? Like if someone says, I've been feeling depressed and hopeless, it's not helpful to say, here's a scripture for you, feel better, and then dust off your hands like you've solved the problem, right?
Yeah.
And I think we all need to be careful of that.
Sure.
Scriptures are relevant to the solution, which is, Jesus is the great healer, and he also works through other people, and also medical technology, like medications. Anyway, go ahead.
But sure, but he's also if you had a conversation with him, I'm sure he's also a great psychologist,
for sure,
and understands the science of why you're having a hard time with certain things or whatever, and probably would take a very practical, useful approach.
Yeah, maybe apply some mud to your eyes, or in this case, maybe to your brain.
Yeah, perhaps. Anyways, I was thinking about this whole thing about the comments about if you tell somebody what's wrong with you, it's totally natural and understandable for a person to just go straight to defensiveness.
Sure.
You were talking earlier about how we focus on dangerous things, because it's that's what kept our ancestors alive or whatever. I think in Jordan Peterson, or the Big Five test, you'd probably say the people that take things more personally, they may be more neurotic, but they're more careful.
Maybe more conscientious.
Maybe more conscientious and or neurotic, yeah. Yeah, and...
we've never talked about we've never talked about it in depth here. But we will someday.
I think we have. I took the Big Five a while back.
Anyway, we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, but anyways, you're thinking about... I like the comment about, you don't have to take all negativity out of marriage. There is another Jordan Peterson comment that I heard one time where somebody asked him his advice about marriage, and he said, argue as much as you can in the first few years. And just to kind of work stuff out. And I mean, Gottman does say look, if your partner needs a break in the middle of an argument, it's important to give them that, because sometimes people need that. I have a brother who's like that. He can't resolve it in the middle of the argument. I kind of like to argue things out because I usually get around to recognizing where I'm wrong and can admit it, if I keep talking. But
the reality is physiologically we get more emotional. The more emotional and stressed out we get, the stupider we become.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he talked about this in this thing where they would take the couples they could measure their blood pressure or what, right? Or
their heart rate.
Okay, the heart
rate.
Once
it got over 110 beats per minute, he talked about how the body secretes adrenaline, arteries constrict, blood flow shuts down to the gut and the kidney, people start to sweat, the blood pressure increases, and kidney produces renin, which leads to angiotensin, which increases blood volume. Yeah, these are my notes.
Yeah, okay. I remember all this.
Copy.
But basically, it's your body. He says that your body has adaptive value when you're in the middle of conflict, and the tiger's chasing you, and you need to run away. Your body is just revving you up so that you could run away, but it's not always the best. And he said that actually this research came when he had clients who were in domestic violence type situations. He would research that, and what he noticed is that the couples who had conflict, they that type of domestic violence conflict, they never stopped to take a break in the middle of an argument.
I remember that.
To de-escalate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good.
So Paul mentioned defensiveness, which is the second horseman. I just want to back up a little bit, though, to ask a question, something I don't know the answer to. But because again, this research is about marriage. I think most of the people listening to this are single. Us three certainly are single, and the question is how can I apply this? And I think the answer is, marriage is like dating, except with bigger commitment, right? And so, dating is a process, at least if you're dating, the way that Latter-day Saints date, which is, with the ideal of, the way most Latter-day Saints date, not all, which is with the goal of eventually getting married, right, and committing to someone. So dating is a process of making small, incremental, appropriate commitments, right, increasing commitments. So my question is, Oh, okay. And therefore, these principles do apply to the dating process. But I'm wondering, in terms of like appropriately expressing, talking about yourself, your feelings, and what you need in relation to criticism, right? Where we're expressing our needs. How soon is too soon in a dating context to have that kind of candid conversation? Like, hey, you ignored my text for a week, and then you got back to me, and I'd been planning this thing or whatever, or I was hoping to have a conversation with you, and this made me feel this way. I'm reluctant to even do that because most women, at least in the online dating, are looking for any excuse to disappear. They're the most skittish of all skittish creatures, I find. What do you guys think?
Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say perhaps, but it's also true that if the person has legitimate interest in you, this kind of a thing can be a good conversation where then they know, like, oh, you're really invested in this, though, actually.
It's true.
Like, I know, like, Gottman talks about, like, the different, successful couples were good at bringing things up in a gentle way.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly
gentle
how he
startup
phrased that. Is that what he calls it? Gentle
Yeah.
startup. I can't remember exactly all he said about that, but
by the way, I think we should just split this episode into two.
yeah, it's probably a good idea.
You guys on the fly.
There's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of good content. So there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. But I mean, like, I don't know, man. Like, because I kind of feel like those are good opportunities, though, to start building the foundation of a good relationship too. Because. So,
So I think my question to you would be, well, what's the alternative? Is the alternative you just criticize your partner?
No.
And obviously, we know that from the research that criticism is going to end in a disastrous relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so what he says is that the masters are still complaining, but just in a different way.
Right,
and
right.
I would say that the research, I think that what it's in your best interest to state your needs at the very beginning. And it's kind of a funny concept because I feel like so many people in relationships, they have an idea that the other person, like, hey, you should know what I'm feeling on the inside.
Right.
But often they don't, And
Called mind reading.
Yes.
Where we assume that they know what we're thinking without us having ever expressed it. Yeah.
But that happens more often than not, and people tend to, if there's something that legitimately bothers you, why not talk about it?
Yeah.
Because if they can't even handle that, then what makes you think they're going to be able to handle anything else?
Sure.
Yeah, because I think ending up and criticizing down the road is an alternative. The other alternative is like you just don't talk about it and you get upset about it.
And that's usually what I do historically.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I'm kind of talking about this in the dating context of like the very earliest stages where you're just exchanging messages.
Sure, exactly.
And I do think that like in that case, the commitment level is low to non-existent already, right? So it's
like a fragile little plant.
I think there should be a little bit of commitment where you've had a good back and forth exchange for a day or something. I think if it's someone where you've said, hey, I like your picture, and they're like, hey, thanks, and then you're like, how are you? And then they never respond for a week and they say, fine. I don't think that's a good scenario where you should be like, let me tell you how you made me feel. Because you don't know each other and the commitment is low and that's not inappropriate.
You talk about your feelings. Yeah. When you said you liked my picture, I felt happy.
Yeah. Now, that being said, there's a particular lady I'm thinking of. I will not mention names. Where like we've had conversations back and forth and she ignores me all the time. And I've just been like, okay. Either she's too busy, or she's not interested, or she's just really bad at communicating and understanding how to treat people. Either way, I feel like I'm a punching bag here, and my usual approach is to say nothing, but I wonder if I should say something.
But what do you have to lose by saying something? Yeah. That's the question.
And the what you have to lose is you might scare them off.
And what do you have to gain?
You're absolutely right. Yes, I could prolong this unhealthy dynamic. Yeah.
Or maybe you can get out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm being reminded now of the other situation where you just strongly suspected that someone was like a Nigerian bot or something, or somebody trying to get your credit card information.
Oh, wait, are you talking about me?
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was. They're like somebody like, why don't you buy something for my son?
This happened to me a few weeks ago. I matched with this really cute girl, in Colorado, really cute single mom. She seemed nice,
gift card
and when we moved the conversation, I met her on Mutual, but she was not verified.
What does verified mean? They've taken a photo and
of them with the Book of Mormon or doing the Scout salute. Yeah,
see.
I mean, you can still be a scammer and do that, obviously, but
it's got to be good at Photoshop.
Yeah, but she seemed like a real person until I started talking with her, especially once after I'd moved things to WhatsApp, which is. That's a progression of the relationship. We're becoming a little more serious because they tell you that they don't use Mutual for communicating much.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mutual. But people don't like to use your messaging part for very long.
Okay.
Anyway, and we moved to, and I've got it all on my phone. I could show the police if I ever had to, but like it moved very quickly from hey, how's it going? How are you? To like, oh, you're going to the store? What are you going to buy me? Or for my daughter, and him said, can you get me a $50 Steam gift card?
Yeah.
And that's when I started to get suspicious. And I called him out on it.
It's like, yeah.
It was probably him. It was probably some little boy in India or some young man in India. Or in Latin America, because I was throwing in some Spanish in there. Anyway, big tangent by Bryce.
No, it's right. Here's another like micro tangent, but and after this, we probably get back on track. But okay, when we were talking about reading minds, though, okay, now tell me what you think about this, because my tendency is to think that women do this more than men, assuming that the man should know what they're thinking, But do you guys think that's correct or no? Am I wrong?
I would say maybe not. I don't know. I think it also depends on the person, but
it does.
Yeah, I mean, I think both parties could be, guilty of mind reading. I think mind reading is just, it's
like assuming that the other person should know what they. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
If
the other person understood me, they would know what I'm feeling.
Yeah,
I'm aware that.
I'm a little bit passive too. Like I tend to avoid conflict as well. So I know I do some of this myself, where I'm like, they should have known that was gonna upset me.
They should know that was whatever. But that's the thing. It's like, but they're not ever gonna know that something upsets you unless you actually say something about it. And that's kind of the whole thing about. That's why I like what he says. He says, these winners, or now he doesn't call them winners, he calls them masters, relationship masters.
Yeah.
Like, they're still complaining. It's just a completely different way.
Yes.
It's saying, hey, man, this is how I felt when you did X, Y, Z, and this is what it looks like to me, and this is what it, means to me.
Yeah. And could you please?
And could you please? Or this is what I need you to do. And if they're not willing to do that, then what are the chances that they're willing to do other things? And I think this is a very legitimate thing that you could apply in dating, because if you can do this basic concept, if they can actually follow through with your simple requests, and they don't have to be like super crazy, but if you're like, hey, you know what? It really bothers me when you say we're going to meet at 5:00 and we meet at 6:00, or it really bothers me when, we say we're going to go on a date this one day, and then all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know. For me, one of the best books that I read about dating was called How to Never Fall in Love with a Jerk, and one of the things that he talks about is,
which I think we should talk about sometime.
Yeah. He talks about
very good.
It's so important. Like, what is a person saying and what is a person doing? He calls it congruence. Are those two things matching? And I think it's okay to complain in a way that is actually in your best interest. And that's why I really like what he teaches about, what Gottman's research teaches about the masters. Yeah. I think we all need to learn how to complain this way.
I agree. I agree.
Not that we're actually the best at it, but I think it would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I think most of us are naturally, most of us probably aren't that great at it, But,
that's right.
Yeah.
But that's a good point.
So, let's take your roommate, for example.
Yeah.
Rather than, if you're complaining in this way about the dishes, what would you say? Like, you talk about yourself, you talk about what you feel, and what you talk about.
First, I make sure in general that I'm making positive comments in general, And then a while after that, maybe like a few days, it'd be like,
hey, I love how you eat so much food.
I actually did.
Create so many dishes. I love it.
No. I actually did do this.
Hey, no sarcasm, guys.
Actually, he's gotten better about the dishes, and I did make this comment one time. I said, "Yeah, man, I just get kind of bummed out when there's a lot of dirty dishes." That's all I said.
Yeah.
So it was at least a way, I guess.
That's how you feel.
It is how I feel.
Good job, man.
And it was true. It is
And
true. Like
did you tell him what you needed?
No, I thought that was implied. He actually has done a lot better at the dishes.
Okay, well that's good.
And so I don't complain about it as much. Now I think about the counter. I'm like, the counter is dirty. But yeah. So actually, I guess that was a little success story there.
So criticism is the first, what's it called, indicator that your relationship is, going to be apocalyptic, like it's going to come to an end. But so there's 3 more that we haven't talked about that I would like to talk in the next 15 minutes.
Well, we talked briefly about
if we can.
defensiveness.
Why don't we call an end to this episode and then...
Let's say...
And then at some later time, we'll create a new one.
Sure, but
that's fine.
Let's say what they are. And
okay.
Right? Because the first one is... criticism. The second one is defensiveness, which we did talk about a little bit. And then the third one is contempt
and disrespect
versus appreciation. Yeah, and the other one is stonewalling. So
there we go.
Yep, and
we're gonna talk about those more next time.
Yeah, that's right. And there's gonna be some stonewall.
Cuenta, por favor. wait, let's check.
Check, please. How do you say check in Spanish?
Cuenta.
Yes.
Cuenta, por favor. In case any of you watch Adventure Time.
This one of our future sponsors.
This cartoon. Every time we say check, you're referencing a scene from Adventure Time. So. Anyways.
Anyway.
Yeah, this is good stuff, though. I really like this stuff. And, I like some of his just practical comments, too, like, that we'll talk about next time. About, like, just asking more questions and stuff. Yep. The love map and all that stuff. That's other stuff he talks about.
Oh, yeah, get ready.
A love map.
Get ready for next time.
And
bids,
fondness and admiration.
When eBay meets
romance.
Stuff.
And this stuff really strikes true to me. I feel like in my best relationships, I have had as many arguments as I've had in my bad relationships. But the arguments in my good relationships have ended up in just easily being able to I would say more easily taking responsibility, the both of us, and I don't know. I feel like our arguments would end up in hugs and stuff.
Yeah, hugs and stuff.
It was just more like, all right. It was easier to work through things.
Yeah.
We would still have the problems, but we'd work through them.
Yeah. So according to Gottman, 69% of relationship problems are not solvable.
Yeah.
But there are 31% that are solvable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked his comment that no, you're really to some extent you're picking which person's problems are you okay with because you can't. I do think that to some extent, especially from an LDS perspective, it's kind of like I believe that every relationship becomes celestial in the long term if it stays intact, and that we're deciding which things we can't wait for in this life, in mortality, which are the things we can't wait for them to get better.
Yeah. Speaking of not being able to wait, you won't be able to wait for our next episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, okay. No, this was great. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Adios.
Okay, goodbye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing on iTunes or your favorite podcasting app and give us a rating. Thank you.